Welcome into Payoff Pitch. We are Action Network's MLB betting podcast. It is Monday, July 24th, 10-game slate. Off day for some teams. Other teams, they are in action. Brendan Glasheen joined today by Sean Zerillo and BJ Cunningham. Payoff Pitch comes your way this week 3 times, Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Please rate, review, and subscribe. We certainly appreciate it. We're making that final push here to the trade deadline. Second half we know is underway. More to come on trade deadline special, or we'll touch on the deadline if it works out for us. Let me just look really quickly, live in time. The deadline is August 1st, if I remember correctly. So we would have a show that morning. That could be chaos, but we'll figure that out. But deadline's next week. So, and there are some series that start tonight that are crucial for some teams' futures and how they may approach next Tuesday's deadline. But for our purposes, we know we are here to deliver best bets and dive into the slate. Sean Zerillo, author of Opening Pitch. You can find it at Action Network app, breaks down the slate, previews everything, dives into the pitching matchups, etc. Zerillo, a best bet that you have for Monday on a shorter slate?
Taking the Philadelphia Phillies in both halves here. Like them up to about minus 140 for the first 5 innings, closer to minus 135 for the full game. Projections about minus 150 for the first 5 innings and minus 145 for the full game. So pretty substantial edge compared to where I have them projected and where the actual betting market is. Dean Kramer, if you've been following my stuff, a pitcher that we have pretty regularly bet against. Expected ERA of 5.6. Pitch modeling metrics closer to league average, 100 pitching plus rating, 94 stuff plus. But, you know, the bottom end of this Orioles rotation is where I've basically attacked them against Kyle Gibson, against Dean Kramer. And Christopher Sanchez is a pitcher who I think has some interesting qualities this year. I don't think his stuff plus is necessarily improved. He's a bit of a slider only guy, but his command is getting better. His strikeout minus walk rate is up about 7% compared to his first 2 seasons in the major leagues. His command location plus numbers have certainly improved. Not the easiest matchup for him. The Orioles are better against lefties than righties. The Phillies on paper technically are better against righties than, or against lefties than righties as well. So technically it seems like the Orioles should have the advantage in the hitting for this matchup, but on paper, modeling it out, I make the Phillies offense about 10% better in terms of this actual split that they're both in for this matchup. So the Phillies, as I said, projected them closer to minus 145, minus 150. Getting around minus 115 to minus 120 seems like a nice, healthy edge at this price point. And there's a nice amount of room to play them to minus 145 and minus 135, respectively.
Okay, excellent. Total at 9.5 for this game. Baltimore is a dog, or they're even money for full game. First 5, as Zerillo said. Philadelphia is favored. They're at minus 150 first 5 now over at BetMGM. BJ, I think you're going to target this game as well. As we know, Baltimore just coming off a great weekend against Tampa. They're now 6-2 against Tampa. They take 3 out of 4. They have a 2-game lead in the American League East. How would you like to approach Dean Kramer Day? And it's Kramer, not Kremer. DeBundo.
Yes. I like the over first 5 runs. You can find that at minus 110 at BetMGM. You know, Sean mentioned it. Obviously, Dean Kramer, a 5.6 expected ERA pitcher. He's also in the bottom 10 percentile among major league starting pitchers in expected weighted on base average allowed, expected slugging allowed, and expected batting average allowed. And even in his last start, you know, against the Dodgers did an incredible job of laying off anything out of the zone. And he's really struggling to get batters to chase those type of pitches. And Kramer is also a very straightforward type pitcher. I mean, his main 3 pitches are a fastball, sinker, and a cutter. And all of those pitches are allowing an expected weighted on base average over 350. And he's failing to keep the ball off the opponent's barrel, 11% barrel rate allowed. You know, Christopher Sanchez, like Sean mentioned, is a very interesting profile. Like, he's a very heavy ground ball pitcher. He's got a 54.5% ground ball rate this season because his main pitch is a sinker, changeup, and like Sean mentioned, a slider. The stuff plus on that sinker and changeup isn't really good, but his slider has been effective. And when you dig deeper into his StatCast metrics, you know, he's below the 30th percentile and, you know, average exit velocity allowed, barrel rate allowed, and hard hit rate allowed. And the Orioles are good, like Sean mentioned, are good against left-handed pitching. They do have the ability to throw 8 right-handed batters at him. So I'm projecting 6.1 runs here for the first 5 innings. So I think there's a decent edge on over 5 runs.
All right, very good. So we're both on in that game. I think we just double check my tabs here. This is a ESPN Plus game tonight too. So if you have a subscription there, you can tune in. Of course, you have MLB TV, not a problem. But you can get this game over on ESPN Plus. Baltimore and Philadelphia. Good series that sets up this week between those two teams. Let's find out if we're going to fade the public today. A little bit of a different direction, because typically when we touch on fading the public, it's a lot of money coming in on a big, heavy juice favorite, and they're playing a lowly suckbag team. That is not the case. It's actually quite the opposite. Pittsburgh is getting a lot of money tonight against Yu Darvish and the Padres. Padres just played in Detroit. They played an early game yesterday, the Peacock Sunday game. So they're back home against Pittsburgh. And the Pirates are getting some love. 62% of the bets, 91% of the cash on Pittsburgh. Now, we say all that. We're recording on a Monday morning. Who knows what could change throughout the course of the day. So money could easily flip-flop. But for our purposes, at least early on, Zerillo, people like Pittsburgh. And I saw you put Pittsburgh in the app last night. That didn't surprise me because the Buccos taking on the Padres, who are super inconsistent, that lines up. But give a little more analysis. Why you're on Pittsburgh, please.
Yeah, I skipped the Quinn Priester debut last week against the Guardians, which it seemed like a lot of our people were on. I just didn't see value on that game, but I do like the Pirates here. I made their line closer to plus 190, so getting about plus 215, plus 210, I think is a solid enough edge in order to make this bet. As I've mentioned with the Pirates, they're a difficult team to project right now just because of all of the young players that they have on their roster. We don't have a ton of major league splits for these guys, such as Endy Rodriguez, Nick Gonzalez, Henry Davis in a limited sample, Jared Triolo in a limited sample. They have basically a lineup of half veterans and half rookies, and the rookies, you don't really know how well they're going to perform. It's, when you have one rookie in the lineup, it's a bit different than projecting half of a lineup full of rookie hitters. So I think the range of outcomes is significantly wider than it is for most teams, especially when you add in the fact that they have a rookie starter. Priester doesn't project particularly well for me. About a 5.2 model weighted ERA. Darvish under 4, around 3.9. So a big difference in the starting pitching matchup. Padres bullpen advantage, Padres offensive advantage. So, there's nothing I can point to here specifically that says this is why I like the Pirates in this game beyond the price point. I made them about 35% and plus 190. The market's telling you it thinks they're closer to 31%. So we're betting that 2% edge and hoping that they win closer to 35% of the time than 31% of the time.
BJ Cunningham, anything to add? Any chance you'd come back in on Pittsburgh and ride with the people as of right now?
Yeah, I mean, I made the Pirates plus 178, so a decent enough edge there for me as well. Priester is the Pirates' 4th-ranked prospect coming up. He's got an outstanding curveball graded as a 70 out of an 80 scale per Fangraphs. But like Sean said, there's nothing really we can point here and say that the Pirates have all these advantages. It's just the fact that the Padres are still a average offense against right-handed pitching. Yu Darvish has been not his elite self like, maybe he was 2 years ago as a Cy Young candidate, but still a solid pitcher at a 3.9 ERA. Really can't point to much else. Just a small projection edge here on the Pirates. So I'll probably end up betting them at plus 220 at BetMGM before this podcast is over.
Very good. Plus 220. Yes. Available over at BetMGM. And like you said on Darvish, not as one of his worst.
He's fine. Like he's pitching very well. He's just not elite at this point.
Yep. Well, I was waiting for a stuff plus nugget, but I guess
no, we don't need to do that. We'll tune in tomorrow and Anthony DeMondo will say it. We'll put the over under at 12.5.
Darvish hard hit rates up this year, line drive rate, strikeout percentage is slightly down from years prior. So it's kept the ball in the ballpark for the most part, but yeah, I think it makes some sense. And Padres, traveling in a different time zone. We've talked about this before. It's not quite Sunday Night Baseball. I realized that they had a noon game. It was an earlier game yesterday, but that's kind of some brutal travel to then have to play the next night back at home, granted. Okay, not finally, we have a little more to get to. Underdogs next. You're both on the consensus underdog. We need like a ticker, like a siren when there's a consensus underdog. Oh, good God, it's the Royals.
Woo.
Yay.
There you go, Zerillo. There's the energy. Love it. What? Kansas City's lost 5 in a row. BJ said before we hit record, they can't score. But you're betting Kansas City today. Why?
Well, they can score. They always get within 1 run and then just lose. They did that to the Yankees, I think, all 3 games against the Yankees this weekend. But I mean, here's the deal. Ryan Yarbrough. Yeah, Ryan Yarbrough, he's not been good this season. But when you split his numbers from his time in the bullpen, he did make 7 appearances there versus his time as a starter. He's slightly better as a starter, 4.8 xFIP as a starter, 6.5 xFIP as a reliever. And Yarbrough over his career has been an elite pitcher at generating soft contact. He's consistently been in the 90th percentile or above in average exit velocity allowed and hard hit rate allowed. And this year's obviously no different. But what's really working for him in this matchup is the Guardians are just terrible against left-handed pitching. Like they're bottom 5 in weighted on base average and weighted runs created plus against lefties. They have the lowest hard hit rate in baseball against lefties. Not to mention against Yarbrough's pitch combination of sinker, cutter, curveball, and changeup. The Guardians have a -11 run value against those 4 pitches, the left-handed version of them. He'll be going against Logan Allen, who's a negative regression candidate, 3.2 ERA, 4.2 expected ERA. Allen has been a little too reliant on his fastball. 46% of the time, opponents have over a 350 expected weighted on base average against it. And the stuff plus on that pitch is barely above 80. He does have a good sweeper. His changeup is well below average. So to maintain the 3.2 type ERA with 1 pitch, I just don't see him sustaining that over a long period of time. And I get it. The Royals are so bad. They do hit lefties a little better than righties, Brendan. Dead last against righties, 22nd against lefties. I have the Guardians only projected at -135, so I think you're getting a decent edge on the Royals, which I believe the best price is still at +167.
And over at BetMGM, it's come down to +155. Zerillo, the Guardians have won 7 straight Logan Allen starts. And you like Kansas City? What can you add?
With BJ on the Royals here, projected this line at +145. I believe he said +135. BJ, did you bet the over in this matchup too?
I haven't looked at it yet. Let me see you can go ahead and talk and I'll
I also bet the over 8.5 at -120. I like that up to even money. Projected this at 9.3. We'll hear where BJ has his total at
9.4. There we go.
Yep. So over 8.5, 9 at even money looks like a solid bet on this game as well. Wouldn't normally expect that with 2 offenses that rank in the bottom 3, bottom 4 against left-handed pitching. But I think given the quality of the pitching, that's where you get to the number. BJ said all of the points really that I would make Yarbrough better as a starter than as a reliever this season. He had a 4.4 expected ERA the past couple of years with the Rays, fell off a little bit at the start of this season. It seems like he's coming back into form though, and getting back to that 4.4 type level. 4.8 expected FIP as a starter thus far. And again, still rounding into form. So Logan Allen, 4.3 expected ERA. So if Yarbrough is getting back to that 4.4 level, difference between these 2 starting pitchers, as I said, both offenses in the bottom 3, bottom 4 against left-handed pitching. So I made Kansas City closer to +145. So I like them in both halves here. +155 for the first 5 innings, +160 for the full game, and the over 9 up to even money.
All right. Consensus underdog, Kansas City Royals. Love it. Love the chemistry on the podcast on a Monday morning. Before we go, final bets. I know you guys will log these in the app. You might add some as the day moves forward. Zerillo, you got a couple, and then we'll go to BJ.
Yeah, I'm about to add after we jump off the podcast. I'll be adding the Rockies and also the over in that matchup against the Nationals. In terms of bets that are already in the app for me, the Milwaukee Brewers -110, like them up to -115. The Texas Rangers in both halves today. I think this is a decent spot for Texas. I like them to -130 for the first 5 innings and -110 for the full game. And then lastly, the Minnesota Twins going against the Seattle Mariners. I'm not sure if this game was last Tuesday, but last week we had the exact same pitching matchup with the exact same teams, the Mariners and the Twins. Kenta Maeda facing off in Seattle, or yes, they were in Seattle for the last matchup against Luis Castillo. Now they're switching home field, going from Seattle to Minnesota. The line for the first game opened at plus 145, closed at plus 130. We got ahead of that. Based on switching home field, you would expect that plus 130 line to come out to about plus 105 at home, which is roughly where the Twins were last night. But I projected, compared to that plus 130 number from last week, still about a 3% edge between my number and the betting market. So granted, even though the betting market had sort of sharpened up and put the Twins at plus 105 last night, I still saw about a 3% edge between where I projected it and where the betting market was. So Twins were a bet for me in this exact game 5 days ago. The over was a bet for me in this exact game 5 days ago. The weather aligns, both betting an over again. I like the Twins here in both halves, minus 113 for the first 5 innings, minus 107 for the full game, and then also the over 7 up to minus 122 or over 8 to minus 103. I mean, the long and the short of it is Kenta Maeda, Luis Castillo. The underlying metrics are very comparable, and the Twins actually hit righties. They don't hit lefties. So the starting pitching matchup here is much closer than you might assume, considering how many strikeouts Castillo is racking up and also Maeda coming off an injury, but he's gotten back to his pre-injury levels.
Okay, very good. So Zerillo said he's on Texas today, first 5 in the game. Now, I just looked up Yordan Alvarez of the Astros. There was a report, or I think it was the GM of the Astros, Dana Brown, said that Yordan Alvarez, there's a chance he'd return for this series. I don't know if that's tonight, so monitor news there if you're, prop purposes and fantasy, if you do that kind of thing. But this is a big weekend. BJ, you said this is a big weekend, or a big week, I should say, a big series here for Houston. If they want to hang in the race, they're 3 out. You like Texas tonight too. Just looking at BetMGM, just to kind of paint the picture here. Astros are plus 130 to come out of the division, and Texas makes sense as the favorite with a 3-game lead, minus 160. You like Texas tonight as well. It's my long way of asking, does Houston have any sniff this week to maybe get back in the race, to make that division a race?
I mean, they're only 3 back, so it's not like it's an insurmountable lead for them to, even if they drop, 2 of 3 here, they're still going to have a decent shot to get back in this. I mean, the thing about this matchup is I'm not the biggest fan of John Gray, but Brandon Bielak's been a huge negative regression candidate. He's been a 3.4 ERA, 5.5 expected ERA. He's having control issues, really high walk per 9 rate, and going up against the Texas lineup that hits literally everything, no matter what you throw at them. It's a very difficult matchup here for Houston. So I'm with Sean. I'm on Rangers full game and first 5 as well. I also like the over full game and over in the first 5 innings in the late night Blue Jays Dodgers game. Jose Barrios continues to be a negative regression candidate. ERA sitting around 3.5, expected ERA almost a full run higher at 4.6. Michael Grove's coming back into the rotation for the Dodgers. He's been kind of bad through his first 50 innings here at the big leagues. He's got over a 5 expected ERA. He throws a fastball quite often. It's the one pitch you cannot throw the Blue Jays. They absolutely obliterate fastballs. They're very good against right-handed pitching. So 2 elite offenses against right-handed pitching, with 2 right now, based on expected metrics, average to below average starting pitchers. And I'm projecting 10.5 runs for the first 5 and a little over 6 for the first 5 innings. So I like over in both halves in Dodgers and Blue Jays.
Zerillo, sorry, you have something to add just on Yordan? If you wanted to weigh in on that, I didn't really go to you. I know Yordan was one of your favorite picks for MVP before the season. Just a quick thought on that outlook of the division in the West, AL West.
Yeah, Yordan's my guy. He's literally my Twitter profile picture. Yeah, I bet the Astros at the All-Star break to win the AL West at plus money. I still believe I was anticipating the Yordan injury, or the return from injury shortly after the break. I believe Altuve should be coming back relatively soon. I'm not sure what the prognosis is for Lance McCullers, but the Astros have the assets to add at the deadline. And with Seager going down for the Rangers, I think that's a really significant injury, because other than Shohei Ohtani, he was probably the American League MVP to this point. OPS well over 1,000. Corey Seager is not a player. I feel like people don't talk about him that much as a superstar, even though he is, and he is one of the richest players in the game. But that was a significant injury for them. And pitching for pitching, in these matchups, Houston should largely have the advantage. It isn't the case for this matchup with Brandon Bielak going against John Gray. But by and large, I think starter for starter, I give Houston the advantage pretty much if they're playing head-to-head games. And the offense does point to Texas. The bullpen points to Houston. So it's really going to be a lot of, can Texas outslug the Astros pitching, especially once Yordan gets back in there. Yordan, Altuve, that makes the series a bit more even because it moves the Astros offense up. But yeah, I like the Astros the rest of the way. I wouldn't lay juice on them at this point. I said I got plus money at the break. But I think
plus 130 at BetMGM right now.
So, this is the easy thing to do, right? And it's something I always talk about, but it's very easy to see. So looking at Fangraphs and where they have them, Fangraphs still has them winning the division 37.5% of the time. They have Texas winning at 55%. So it would not recommend Houston as a bet at plus 130. And Pacoda has Houston winning the division 70.8% of the time, and it would recommend them as a value bet. So you take those two numbers, the 70.8% and the 37.5%, and you add them together, you get 108.3%, which is 54%. And you said you can get plus 130. So if you take the average of the consensus market, right, at plus 130 is 44%. I said the average between Pacoda and Fangraphs is closer to 54%. You can justify a bet on Houston at plus 130 to win the AL West right now. Would I do it tonight? No, because I think they lose tonight. But before the final two games of the series, yeah. I mean, the project, regardless of whether they win or lose tonight, the projections for Fangraphs and Pacoda are not going to change enough to move you off of potentially betting at. The price is just going to be different. So the opportunity isn't going to change. Just make sure you time it correctly. I wouldn't bet it tonight. I would wait till at least tomorrow if you think they have a better chance of winning.
All right. That's good insight using our friends over at Pacoda and Fangraphs to paint the picture. By the way, it's Evaldi, JP France tomorrow, and then Wednesday we've got Andrew Heaney and Framber Valdez. That is
so maybe you wait till game 3. Hope the Astros lose the first two games of the series and then jump in before game 3 and they go their separate ways. And maybe Houston's able to pull ahead now that Yordan seems that Yordan, Brandon, you mentioned it. He should be back in the lineup tonight. All things, if everything went well during his rehab assignment, it seems like he should be back tonight. So
pointing in that direction. So. Okay, don't forget to follow Sean Zerillo and BJ Cunningham in the Action app. Zerillo's opening pitch column is up with breakdown of tonight's 10-game slate. So find the fellas there in the app, and please leave us that 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to Payoff Pitch. We appreciate the feedback. Brendan Glasheen, your host, signing off. Thanks for listening, everybody, to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast presented by BetMGM. We are back tomorrow, Tuesday, July 25th. We will talk to you then.